Tonight, this is the first time I've had a chance to talk in about a month, I think. The last time I talked, we were in the process of looking to list our house to sell, and today I'm talking as we've already sold it and moved out. So as the world turns, the world can really change in 30 days. Amongst all of that, we have went to Century Kid, we've went to Seattle, we've went to Montrose, Colorado, and I finished my 2 classes, all in amongst all of that as well. So what I'm telling you is that what I'd like to say is that tonight I need some audience participation because I have not had the chance to just overly study on this. But what did I just give you? What did I just give you? An excuse! An excuse, right? I'm already setting myself up for an excuse. All right. I don't like excuses. I'm going to be the first person to tell you excuses are not, and me don't get along real good. My kids and me have a hard time because they love excuses and I don't. And it gets on my nerves quite a bit. But the look of excuses kind of comes into the same way when we talk about God and some of the things He asks us to do. Sometimes we kind of look for excuses and for reasons not to serve instead of reasons to serve. I have a standing date every Wednesday night with my wife at the Chinese place here in town. And every once in a while you'll catch some good, decent theology out of the fortune cookie at the Chinese place. About 2 months ago I got this one and I put it in my billfold because I liked it. It says, "Excuses are easy to manufacture and hard to sell." And I thought that was pretty fitting tonight as we kind of talk about this. If you didn't get that the first time, think about it. You'll get it the second time. So, excuses are easy to manufacture and hard to sell. Carrie, do you understand that? Yeah, okay. I thought you were get confused, like, what is he talking about? So, that is pretty deep. Yeah, but it's pretty, well, the ghost of Christmas past came in. I'm kidding. So, to kind of recap, I don't really know what Ryan talked about a couple of weeks ago when I was not here. But I wanted to kind of go back and look at the previous chapter of this because it kind of builds off of this, what we're talking about tonight. And it was talking about Jesus when He encountered the man and asked him to follow him. And the man said, "Let me go bury my father first." Are y'all familiar with this story? And what was Jesus' response? Let the dead bury the dead, right? Now that sounds pretty harsh, doesn't it? All right, sounds pretty rough. You know, guy right here, he's not saying, "Well, I can't follow you, but I need to go bury my father first," right? But what we don't realize is that back in those days, it took 2 to 3 years to actually bury your loved ones. You had to go through this whole process and all this, and Jesus knew He didn't have 2 or 3 years. I don't have that time. You want to follow me, you got to follow me now. You can't go back and help that man. He's already dead. But you can go out and help everybody else into the future. But what happens is the man hesitates. When Jesus asks him to serve him, he hesitates and he thinks. And he comes up with that excuse. And it's a good excuse, but it's still an excuse. And what happens is do you ever see that man's name recorded in Scripture anywhere? You never hear anything from him, right? The man is forgotten. He had an opportunity to be one of the disciples of Jesus Christ that would have been named, would have been mentioned, would have been carried out in the Bible till the end of time. But his excuse and his hesitation prevented him from having any of that because of that one thing. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. We've been using the verse out of Matthew a lot, out of Luke chapter 9, verse 23, where it says you got to take up your cross daily and follow Jesus. And the last time I spoke, we talked about Matthew, who was going through a really difficult time in his life, and Jesus came to him and said, "Follow me." And what does it say he did? Immediately he rose up and followed. He didn't think about it. He didn't talk about it. He didn't say, "Well, let me pray about it." He said, "Okay, I'm going to follow you." And that's what we're trying to get to now, and that's what we're talking about tonight. We use the word, if you look at your heading, it says whenever. Now, I hate the word whenever because it doesn't specify anything. Okay, when do you want to go eat? Whenever. All right. Well, what time do you want to go? I need some help moving some stuff. What time do you want to do it? Whenever. No, that's not what I'm asking you. What time do you want to go? But a lot of times that's kind of our kind of attitude is like, well, we're going to follow Jesus. We're going to serve Him. Well, what are we going to do? Whenever. Whenever you need me, just call me. I'm ready. And then what happens when you call them? Too busy. Don't want to do it. Oh, I can't do it. I can't make it that night. Whoops. Something else going on tonight, right? So the question is, how about now? Why wait? What's the point of waiting? So, as I segue before we get into our passage of Scripture, I got a question here at the start, and I think some of y'all probably can come up with some of these. They're very good. So, what are some good excuses you have used or maybe have heard in your life that, kind of, you're like, oh, yeah, that's pretty good. I'll use that one.
I'm tired.
Too tired. Too busy. Yeah. Hungry, yes. Hangry. Scary Jones. She goes from Carrie Jones to Scary Jones. He gets hungry. Got to go watch the kids play ball. Yeah. So I found this website. So if any of y'all are intrigued to come up with some good excuses, I found this website. It's called the Mother of All Excuses. And there's like 500 of these things that are real excuses that people are used. So you can get on here and check them out. Some of these are pretty good, But like number 2 here, my neighbor's daughter got a round hairbrush stuck in her hair, and I need to help her get it out. Okay? Now, I guess that could work, but, it works there. My boyfriend hit me over the head with a speaker, and I'm kind of messed up. It's possible. I guess that could have happened. I can't come to work today because the city's paving my street, and I can't get out of the house. It may work. Excuses. It could actually happen. That's why, it's possible to work. Let's see right here. Let's see here. There was one more on here that I like, that I really like. Oh, yeah. My dog ate my car keys. We're hitchhiking to the vet. Come on. But what I'm saying is that we can all come up with excuses for anything. Right? It doesn't matter what we're doing. It doesn't matter where we're going. It doesn't matter anything that happens. We can always come up with an excuse. But excuses will always prevent you from really getting to where you want to be. And they'll always limit your ability to actually serve Jesus, serve the church, serve the ministry that you're in to the level that God's calling you to serve. If you don't watch yourself and realize that that's just Satan's way of getting you to not serve, is to give you these excuses. So we're looking at a passage over in Matthew chapter 25. It's very familiar. I'm sure all of us in here have probably heard it multiple times, the parable of the talents. And we're looking at it a little different angle from this, just because one of, obviously, the slaves does not do what he's told to do, and then, of course, whenever approached about it, he comes up with an excuse of why he didn't do it. So I'm going to read the whole thing. It's a little lengthy, but I'll just go ahead and read it all. And then we'll kind of look at a few different things from that to kind of get us going. So it says, "For it's just like a man going on a journey. He called his slaves and turned over his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. Then he went on a journey immediately. The man who had received 5 talents went, put them to work, and earned 5 more. In the same way the man with 2 earned 2 more. But the man who had received 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 talents approached, presented 5 more talents, and said, 'Master, you gave me 5 talents. Look, I've earned 5 more talents.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy.' Then the man with 2 talents also approached. He said, 'Master, you gave me 2 talents. Look, I've earned 2 more talents.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy.' Then the man who had received 1 talent also approached and said, 'Master, I know you. You're a difficult man, reaping where you haven't sown and gathering where you haven't scattered seed. So I was afraid and went off and hid your talent in the ground. Look, you have what is yours.' But the master replied to him, 'You evil, lazy slave, if you knew that I reap where I haven't sown and gather where I haven't scattered, then you should have deposited my money with the bankers. And then when I returned, I would have received my money back with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have more than enough. But from the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. And throw this good-for-nothing slave into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now that's a scary end to that passage. Very scary end. Because when you read that and say that, wait a minute, you're going to throw me out into the basically abyss. Going to hell, basically, is what he's doing. All because you didn't do what you were asked and tasked to do. So we're going to use this kind of passage and some of the stuff we talked about to kind of identify three things that excuses can do if you allow them to kind of take over and interfere with your walk and path that God's laid out before you. And the first thing we see is excuses delay service. Excuses delay service. So the question here is when have you delayed starting something? Anybody? Paper? Procrastination there? Studying, homework, just literally anything you do. Yeah. Literally anything you have to do. Yeah.
My biggest thing is like I've never really started a devotional, like
Sure.
a morning plan.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about it, haven't done it.
Talked about it, and all that, right? That's right. So yeah, all good. I mean, so true. The classes that I take are all online, so we don't have a lot of interaction with other classmates. So you have to do these forum posts where they ask a question, you got to put a response, and then you got to wait for somebody else to put a response, and you got to respond to theirs, and talk about whatever they said. You got to do it like 2 or 3 times. And what I found is that I try to get mine done like on Wednesday or Thursday, just so I don't have to think about it. But I'll start getting emails about 10 o'clock Sunday night because it's due at 11, and all these people, everybody else is all doing it right there because they've delayed that opportunity, right? So he used a good story in here, which I thought also made sense. He was talking about the guy that wrote the book that we've actually been going on. He was talking about an old car that he had, and the check engine light came on it. And I don't know a lot about cars, but I know if the check engine light comes on, that means there's probably something wrong, right? No, I don't sell. That's a common misconception with me. I do not sell cars. All I do is say sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here. I don't sell them. I don't know much about them. I don't know how to fix them. Okay, you ask me questions that are technical. I don't know the answers. I'm sorry. I bring it up. I use my old dirty Harry line. Man's got to know his limitations. That's mine. I don't know. I just take it to the service department. Anyway, his car had the check engine light come on it. And he just looked at it like, well, I'll take it later. I'll go some other time. Car's driving fine, not a problem, right? Engine light stays on. People get in his car and be like, oh, hey, your check engine light's on. Yeah, I'm going to check it out later. He finally gets sick of people talking about his check engine light on, so what does he do? Takes a piece of tape and tapes over it. Now, I've actually seen this happen before. We've seen people try to trade their car in where they put a piece of tape over like a check engine light, like, we can't find that out. So he puts it over there, right? So, time goes on and he forgets about it, right? I mean, because that's what happens, right? When we delay our opportunities, we kind of forget about them. We forget about what we're supposed to do. Till one day he's driving down the road and the transmission quits on him. Come to find out, the light that stayed on was the alert. Well, when it actually got bad, it started blinking. He put the piece of tape over it, he couldn't tell that it was blinking. So he didn't know. It'll start blinking whenever it goes bad. So because he had kind of denied it and kind of forgot about it and acted like it just wasn't there, he forgot about it. Well, guess what? If he would have taken care of it in the front end, it probably would have cost him $100. Instead, he had to total the car because the car wasn't worth what it was going to cost to fix it. Because the transmission fell out, and it's like $3,000 to fix the transmission. But that example is so true from what we do so often in life. See, I've stood up. See? I get excited. I have to stand up for a minute, get myself going there a little bit. But it's such a perfect example of what we do a lot. All right, we'll have somebody call on us to maybe serve in a certain capacity, maybe do something, maybe Work with a different ministry, maybe start a devotional, start a Bible study, start anything, right? And we'll kind of, offer the old classic, yeah, let me think on it, or yeah, we need to try to do that. I mean, that's one of my favorites is, okay, you're going to start a Bible study. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, when you want to start? I don't know, just let me know whenever. That's fine. And then you let them know, well, that's probably not going to be good. Let's wait a couple more weeks. And guess what happens? You never start the Bible study. You never start the devotion. You never start that opportunity. Because the longer you delay that, the less and less likely you are to actually do it. And then something will happen one day and you're like, wait a minute, I should have started that 6 months ago. And now I'm so far behind everywhere else I need to be. Same deal for me. I delayed my own call into ministry. I delayed it for years. Wasted time, wasted effort. I had convictions of doing it for years, but I came up with every excuse not to. Came up with excuses why now's not a good time. I'll wait till my kids are a little older. Maybe I'm just not feeling it. Maybe that's really not what God wants me to do. Maybe I'm fine or whatever. All knowing in the back of my head that's not what it was. I was just using excuses to delay that opportunity. So now I'm sitting here and I'm like, all that time that I could have been in service, is gone from me. I can't go back and get that time back. And that's something we have to be so careful of whenever we have those calls or those convictions from God and we delay those and we don't actually take them. If we look back at the story, all three of the slaves got the talents at the same time. It's not like he gave some more time than the others. All three got them at the same time. But what did it say the first two did? They immediately went and put it to work. Immediately. Now, I don't know what the third guy was doing. Obviously, the guy didn't think much of him because he only gave him one. He didn't give. So he already is kind of setting him up because he's like, I know you're the last one. I'm just going to give you one. Let's see what you can do with it. But obviously, he was right because he does nothing with it. He probably took it home. If the talent's that speaker, he just took it home, put it on the shelf, and said, "Well, he'd give me 6 months. I got plenty of time to figure that out." Then 2 months pass, and he looks over at it, and I still got time. We'll figure it out. We'll make it work. And then what happens, the day before he comes back, he looks at it, oh no, I better go hide it. He'll never find it that way, But that's what we think. We think sometimes that I've got time. But why not now? Why not just go ahead and do it? Why not just serve now? Why not accept what you've been given now? Why wait? What's the point? So excuses delay service. The second thing we see, excuses prevent sacrifice. Excuses prevent sacrifice. So what are you willing to give up to serve? What are you willing to give up to serve? I feel like I've asked this question probably every time I've been up here. So it must mean God really wants me to keep asking it. I don't know. But it's true. What are you willing to give up to serve? Okay? Because all your excuses are doing is telling those people that have asked you to do something that I'm only going to serve you if it's easy for me and I don't have to give anything up. That's exactly what you're saying. If you're coming up with a continuous excuse when you know you should be serving in a different capacity, and it's because you're afraid you're going to have to give something up or give something away. I've used this story before, and I've maybe used it in here. I don't know if I have or not. But for years, probably a good 3 or 4 years, my wife was serving on Sunday nights when we used to have the Awana program, and we used to have I can't think of the name of the other one. But anyway, she was a Sunday night Awana teacher. And she would leave every Sunday at 4 or 5 o'clock and go to the church. And I would sit at home watching NFL football. I never went. And this hadn't been that long ago. This has been when Aaron was 6, 7 years old. So it's not like it's been years ago. And they asked me to help serve in those capacities. I didn't want to give up watching my NFL football. I was a big NFL fan. I didn't want to give it up. Had a nice setup, enjoyed doing it. So I want to do it. And God convicted me one day about that, and it was true. He said, if you're not willing to give up watching NFL football to serve me on a Sunday afternoon, then why are you even following me? Why are you even putting forth the effort to even go on Sunday morning? Because it's just a token. You're not actually committed to doing anything. you're not committed to actually serving me at any level. And it's the truth. If you're not willing to give up everything you got to serve, then what are you doing it for? What's the point? I mean, if you're not willing to, give up something that this world just is fleeting to serve God in a place that He's called you to serve in, and He's convicted you to serve in, then why? What's the point? Something I hear a lot when I've asked people to serve or do some things is let me pray about it. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to pray about it. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so you're going to pray about it, right? Okay. So, if I come to you and ask you to serve in an area, it's not because I just woke up one day and said, hey, you know what? Brad'd be great to serve in this area. It's because I've spent time praying for God to reveal to me who He wants to serve in that area. So when I go to Brad and say, Brad, I want you to serve in this area, I didn't come to Brad out of the will. I came to Brad with a conviction that God put on my heart for him to serve. So when he says, I'll pray about it, he's basically denying what the call that God's put on his life. Now, Brad hasn't done this. I'm just using an example. Okay, so don't get on Brad here. I'm just using an example. But he's actually delaying that. We went through deacon ordination here a couple of weeks ago at the church, and one of the guys that came forward actually denied 2 years ago the call to be a deacon. And I asked him about it. And I said, why did you delay? And he came up with a couple of excuses or whatever. And I said, when the church voted for you to be a deacon, they didn't just vote for you out of a hat. They voted on you because God laid your name on their heart. And I said, God laid their name on your heart, and you just basically denied what God had called you for 2 years. And he looked me right in the eye and he said, you're 100% right. He said, there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think about what I had done, denying the opportunity that was given to me and laid out in front of me. And I was appreciative of him for owning up to it, because that wasn't easy for him to do, but it was true. When somebody asks you to serve and you deny it, in a way, a pretty good way, you're denying God at that point. And I'm not saying there's reasons that may prevent you from serving, your job or whatever. And I'm not trying to sit here and, cast stones at that. But if it's just because of something that's very superficial and something that's just going to make it a little bit less easy for you or a little less hard for you, then that's an area that you need to be praying about. You need to be thinking about. What I try to tell people, and something that I've used is that it doesn't matter if they ask you to serve as a deacon, they ask you to serve as the chairman of the stewardship committee, or they ask you to serve as a nursery worker. It doesn't matter. Your response should not be, okay, let me pray on it. It should be, thank you for that opportunity. Let me pray to God for how He can use me in that opportunity. That should be it. If you've given the opportunity to serve, your response should always be, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Let me pray about how I can better serve in that area once I get there. If you'll start doing that, then what you'll see is what happened to the first two slaves right here. What did it say whenever they came back and they had used the talents and it had blessed them? He gave them more, and He gave them more, and He gave them more. A lot of times we want opportunities to serve. We want opportunities to serve at a higher level or in a different capacity. We want opportunities to serve at, this area or that area. But we're not willing to start serving at the small area. We're not willing to serve in the little areas. We're not willing to serve where maybe we're not where we want to be. But God's not going to bless us with this if we're not willing to even serve here. If we're making excuses to why we can't serve in this small capacity, then why is God going to give us any opportunity at a higher capacity? Because we've already proven that we can't even come up with that. We're already thinking. You see somebody coming, going to ask you something, your mind's already thinking, what can I say? What can I come up with? What can I come up with that's going to get me out of having to do this? Get me having to serve. So, we see that excuses delay service, excuses prevent sacrifice, and finally, excuses separate you from God. Excuses separate you from God. So, if you look at the end of the parable, kind of like I touched on it earlier, this slave's excuse for not doing what he was told to do was very weak. His excuse was that, he was trying to say that he was scared of the master because he's a difficult guy to deal with. Well, that's bogus. He knew he was difficult when he took it. It's not like he just became difficult during the time he had it. That was an excuse. The real issue is he just didn't do what he was supposed to do. He didn't answer the call that he was actually given. So, you can see right through that excuse. Everybody can. It's easy to see. But what does it say at the very end? He threw the slave into the outer darkness. Now, this is a story. This is not Jesus saying that he's throwing you into the outer darkness if you're not serving him. But if you continuously delay and don't answer the call, then yes, you will be separated from God because you will have not following the path that he's laid out for your life. A word that is really about the worst word that I think you can use when you start talking about this is the word tomorrow. All right? Tomorrow. Think about it. You'll see somebody drinking a milkshake. Well, I'm starting my diet tomorrow. Okay. Then tomorrow comes and you got the milkshake again. Well, I'm going to start it tomorrow. I'm going to get up and go running tomorrow. Couldn't get up today. Had a rough night. I'm going to start tomorrow. Then tomorrow comes and guess what? Didn't go running again. Something else come up. Couldn't start. Got to go the next day. Got to go the next day. Got to go the next day. I'm going to be a better husband or a wife tomorrow. Right now, my wife's made me mad. I can't start tonight. I got to start tomorrow. Be fresh. Sleep on it. I'll be in good shape tomorrow. I'll get there. I'll get there. But they pile up, and they pile up, and they pile up. And then what happens is, at some point, tomorrow doesn't come. Tomorrow's gone. There is no tomorrow. You've lost the opportunities. And they don't bring it back. That's what happened to this guy. He kept saying, I'm going to do something with this talent tomorrow, or tomorrow, or tomorrow, or tomorrow. And eventually he ran out of time. And then tomorrow didn't come, and the opportunity went away. And that's the same thing we have to watch when we're talking about taking up our cross daily and following Jesus. And following the path he has for our life, following the direction he has for our life, and following what we need to do with our life. Daily. No excuses. No reasons why I can't. No any of that. Take up the cross. Follow me daily. Wherever you ask me to serve, I'll serve. Whatever you ask me to do, I'll do. Try it sometime. Try it. Just see what happens. See how your life will change, or how your ministry life will change, how your church life will change, how your Sunday school life will change. Just how your personal life will change. Stop saying, I'm going to start it tomorrow, and just start doing it. The question is, what holds us back from fully accepting the purpose God has for our lives? We can sit here and name them all that. Job, family, personal thing, school, whatever. You can come up with anything you want to come up with. But all those things, if you allow those things to continue to be the most important thing in your life, will eventually separate you from God to the point where you won't have those opportunities to serve Him anymore. Because you will have shown Him that you're not going to do anything with it, so why am I going to give it to you? Right? So, the question that we see at the bottom, finish it. Think about it. Look over it. Think about it tomorrow. Think about it the next day. When is my tomorrow going to become today? When is the tomorrow of the Bible study I'm going to start? When's the tomorrow of I'm going to read 3 chapters in the Bible? When is the tomorrow of I'm going to text somebody that I don't talk to every day and just give them an encouraging word? When of all those things that you're going to do tomorrow, when's that going to just start becoming today? And don't have to worry about it tomorrow. Don't have to think about it. Just do it. And that's the thing. The question, how about now? Why not now? I thought Clay had a great point this past Sunday morning when he said that. You know, he was on the same path that I'm on tonight in talking about serving and going out and doing what you're called to do. Why not now? What are you waiting for? What could possibly prevent you today that's going to be better 6 months from now? Because you're going to be just as busy. You're not going to get less busy. I can promise you. I'm a lot older than all y'all in here. I'm more busy today than I was 20 years ago, 10 years ago. You know, you don't get less busy. You get more busy. So if your opportunities to serve today and you're not taking them, then how's God going to bless you with the opportunities to serve when you're even more busy than you are today? So that's food for thought on that. I don't want to get into some mini sermon here, but anyway. So think about that as you go. When's tomorrow going to become today? When are you going to look at opportunities to serve and not think of how many excuses can I come up with before they ask me the question? How many times can I say, let me pray about it, until they finally quit asking me to pray anymore? Because obviously you're not praying the same thing we're praying, because we've asked you to serve, and every time you do it, you say you pray about it, and you never come through. You never show up. You never do it. So we're just going to quit. So that's where we're at. We're almost to the end of this series, and if you followed along with the whole series, we've been building and building and building each week to this. But we're building away from the wannabe, lukewarm, watered-down Christian that's never going to carry the Great Commission anywhere, because it's just too passive for them to do, because it takes too much work and too much effort and too much sacrifice. And we're trying to get people to actually do what Jesus called us to do. Don't pray about it. I told you to do it. Do it. You know, that's the line that was great from this past week that we read, that we heard about. Jesus didn't tell you in the Great Commission to go out and pray if you need to go do it. He said, go do it. So why are we not? What are we missing? Where are we coming at? Closing thoughts? Anybody? Points? Counterpoints? Takeaways? Subjects? Connor, did you have something? Oh, I thought you raised your hand. Oh, scratched your ear. My bad. So, addition, subtraction, anything? Oh, sure. You're talking about sharing your faith, sharing the gospel. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the number one excuse that we get, and anybody gets. If you're in ministry, you know, if you've been in church, you know, the number one thing people say is, I can't share my faith because I don't know how, or I'm uncomfortable, or I can't talk to people, or I don't know what to say, I don't know how to do it. That's always the excuse, right? Always the excuse. But it's just an excuse. That's all it is. I mean, sharing your faith is not breaking out the Bible and having to go through every scripture. It's just telling people about how your life used to be different and how it's better now, and how you've actually got purpose, and you've actually got meaning, you've actually got direction that you can go on, that you've actually got something that when the difficult days come, that you can still have a light to look at. I mean, that's what it is. It's not complicated. We complicate it because we let Satan come in and complicate it for us. But it's not complicated. It's the easiest hard decision anybody will ever make. All you have to do is accept it. It's easy. It's not like you have to do all this other stuff. But it's the hardest decision people have to make, because if you actually accept it like you're supposed to, then you've got to start going a different way at that point. A lot of people have a problem with that. But what else? Anybody else?
Spin off of one of your questions.
Sure.
What holds us back from fully accepting the purpose that God has for our lives?
Sure.
I feel like that's mainly fear.
Sure.
Of what's to come, and we forget that God knows us better than we do, and that He knows our purpose better than we do. So,
That's right.
and we also forget that no matter what He calls us to, He's on.
Well, that's the thing that we we struggle with so much is fear. Fear obviously prevents us from doing so many things and getting so many places and going so many directions. But if God calls you to something, He's not going to call you to it without equipping you to be able to do whatever He's called you to do. I mean, a lot of these people that we read about in the Bible were not polished people. These were not polished speakers. These were not people that had went to seminary and studied. In fact, if you read the Bible, most of the people that went to, a lot of the advances and really got far in and had that knowledge were not the ones called to do things because they felt like they were equal to God because they had done so much. It was the people that were normal, the people that were, just doing their regular thing. Because God knew that if they just followed Him, He would give them the tools to go out and do what they needed to do. That's why I love reading about the disciples. And that's why I like that tonight, because when it says that immediately, I mean, just when you think about that, if you're sitting right here doing your job, doing what you're supposed to do, and Jesus walks up and says, "Follow me," and you just immediately walk. I mean, think of the boldness and the courage that it takes to do that. To turn away from everything you have and just say, "All right, I'm done. Let's go." I know they were scared. They were fearful. That took a lot of effort. But what happened when they actually just walked and did it? Then He showed them the way and gave them the opportunity to do more and more and more and more and more.